Hi, I'm Barry Silverberg, Director of the Center for Nonprofit Studies at Austin Community College, and this is Civil Society, a periodic podcast to provoke more thinking about issues affecting nonprofit effectiveness and success. My guest today is Bill Hopkins, partner at Shackelford, Bowen, McKinley, and Norton Law Firm. Bill and I have talked a great deal about the lack of diversity and inclusion within nonprofit boards. So Bill, why do you sit on nonprofit boards?
Well, it actually splits in two different things for me. They're personal reasons. Essentially, I believe in helping the community. I was raised to believe that it's everyone's job, especially if you have skills and talents, to give back to the community and make it better. And nonprofit boards are an easy way to do that. The other reason I do it, quite frankly, Barry, and it ties to our conversation, is that I look at boards and I recognize that there's nobody on them that looks like me. And so from a very early age, I recognize that if I want there to be change, I have to do it. And kind of the JFK, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? And so I embrace that. And so every opportunity I get to make a change, especially if it includes a change in leadership, I step up and do it. And unfortunately, that leads to me being on a lot of boards. So,
what are some of the boards you're on?
So I am on the American Red Cross board for Central Texas. I'm on the foundation board for Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm on the foundation board for People's Community Clinic. I'm the chair of the board of E4Youth, which is a group that helps kids, underserved children, get involved with technology and creative arts. I'm on the board of the Austin Symphony Orchestra. Let's see, I'm sure there's probably one or two more floating around out there that I can't think of. But
so when do you practice?
So I practice a lot to help maintain all my hobbies of being
I
on
see
boards.
that. So how does it feel to often find yourself to be the only person of color on a board, nonprofit board?
Initially it was pretty uncomfortable, but what uncomfortable in the sense that I was always wondering why. I mean, I've always, being a black professional, you're always going to be one of few. And so it's never been a situation where I was personally uncomfortable for me, but it's uncomfortable recognizing that especially over the years that I've done this, that nothing has really changed. That I haven't seen, it's one thing when you kind of start things and then all of a sudden everything changes and you look around and go, wow, this is great. Everyone showed up to the party. But it's been very disheartening on some levels to see that, I've been the only one on some boards and having been on those boards 6, 7, 8, 10 years, I was still one of 2 or 3 out of 15 or 20. And so that's a little depressing.
So why do you think that's the case?
Not
that you're depressed.
No, points well taken. I mean, my therapist and I are sorting through that one.
Why there's so few people of color on board?
Yes, sir. So, I think it's interesting. It's a very and there are a lot of organizations out there wiser than me studying it. But from what I've seen, it's fascinating in that it's a fundamental disconnect between two well-intentioned sources. So you have the nonprofit organizations that if you were to talk to them would tell you, we fully believe in diversity, we would encourage diverse people to become involved in our leadership. We just don't know where they are. We don't know how to find them. We don't have them in our ready-made circles. And then if you talk to the actual diverse individuals, they also typically voice a desire to help society, a desire to get involved, and a desire to plug in, but they're not aware of what their opportunities are, and in some cases, depending on the board, they're concerned that they might not be welcome on those boards because of their stereotypic views or what they understand those boards are about.
So what do you think can be done to increase the number of people of color on boards?
I think first and foremost, you and I are doing it. One of the most important things that can be done is you have to have the discussion, and that's true of any real social change. Right. You have to talk. People have to be willing to embrace the difficult and uncomfortable subjects, and they have to talk about them. So I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you because that's huge. But once you have the conversation, I think we need to get those two factions, the nonprofit organizations and the people that want to serve, in a place where they can talk together, because obviously that's the bond that we want to create. We want to the degree that the nonprofit organizations don't know where to find these people, we need to create pipelines and resources so that they can find people of color that can plug into those spots. To the degree that the people of color and the diverse individuals want to plug in, we need to find a way to educate them and to remove some of the stereotypes and some of the barriers, some self-imposed, some that may be culturally imposed, and help them plug in where they want to, and really just bringing those groups together.
So one of the things that have been identified as one of the problems in terms of the question of the numbers of people of color on boards has been the fact that if the board is largely Anglo or Caucasian, that they usually look to their friends to find board members.
Sure.
So what would you recommend, based upon your experience, to overcome their natural inclination to turn to people, as you said in the beginning, like themselves?
Right. I mean, I think first of all, it's a natural response. I mean, every board that I've been on, it is a natural response when you're in the board recruiting. The first question that is asked of every board member is, who do you know? Well, necessarily that limits the pool to the people that I know, and those are going to be like-minded, arguably, with regard to people that are in my circle. I think that one thing we have to do is we have to embrace that that's still a viable way to recruit board members, but it shouldn't be the only way. And I think that's part of the problem, that boards have used that as their primary and in some cases only resource for recruiting. And so it gets back to the pipeline comment that I made earlier. And there's a group called New Philanthropists out there that I think is going to do some great work as to creating an actual pipeline that we can point people to, nonprofits to, and say, if you don't know where to go, this organization is going to help you get there.
Right. So you have the podium here.
Sure.
What would you like people of color to know, and what would you like the Anglo community on boards and people of color who want to be on boards? What would you suggest would be a way to get onto a board?
I think the biggest thing, and once again, to me, this is the concept of social change. Frankly, for me, is the most important thing that anyone can do in any scenario like this is take action. You've got to do something. And so if it's getting up and doing some research on the boards that you think you're interested in, to really dig beneath the stereotypes and figure them out, that's one thing. If you know someone that's on one of those boards or have access to someone, have a conversation with them and talk to them. From the nonprofit board side, the boards have to get beyond their comfort level. They have to be able to reach out, and they have to start talking to groups and to individuals and saying, we don't have people of color on our board. We don't have diverse, and diversity is not just color, but we don't have diverse people, and we want them. And so they have to be willing to kind of open themselves up to what could be public scrutiny with regard to, we admit that we're homogeneous and we have a desire to diversify that. Please help us. I think that's a big part of it also, is a lot of organizations fear that if they label themselves as being non-diverse, that they may also be labeled as racist or closed or anything else, when the reality is it's not true. It's more circumstantial in often cases than it is anything else. And we've got to get past all that, and we've got to start moving and taking action, because I think once those doors are open on both sides, I think we'll get where we want to be.
So your feeling is that in most cases it's not intentional, it's circumstantial, is what you just said.
I think that's right. I think that's right. You hear a lot of organizations talk about the concerns they have and the issues that prevent them. For example, one is financial resources. You'll hear people say, well, we would love to have diverse people and people of color, but we're concerned because we're a high fundraising board, and we're concerned that they can't make those contributions. In fact, I just heard that the other day at a meeting. And the reality is that there's just no reason to believe that that's true. Right. There are certainly very, very wealthy and very successful people of all levels of diversity. And the fact that these boards, and the comments I've made in these board meetings are, is their money any less spendable than anyone else's? Yeah. And if it isn't, why are we leaving it on the table?
Good question. So my last question to you, and we have just a little time left, is, in your experience, you mentioned that you've been on some of these boards for 8 years and so forth. Is the discussion of diversity and inclusion an active discussion, or is it kind of like under an undertone in the meetings?
It's funny that you asked that, because from a very personal angle, on the Red Cross and the Symphony Board in particular, I can tell you it is not only a topic, but it's also risen to the level of a committee, of which I chair both of those boards. And so
I wonder why.
Well, let's hope that's not the only reason. But certainly I can tell you that every board is recognizing that diversity is a crucial factor. And most importantly, even if you take all of the emotion, all of the morality and the ethics out of it, they're leaving money on the table.
That's right.
And money
talent.
speaks to everyone. That's
And
right.
talent.
Money, talent,
And talent.
ideas, creativity. They're leaving so much on the table if they don't reach beyond their comfort level to tap into these people. And I think that is resonating to these groups, and that's what's getting them to the table and going, even if we don't care about anything else, we certainly care about that.
money.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Bill, thank you.
My pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Bill. Recent studies report that the nonprofit sector is experiencing a racial gap. Only 9.9% of nonprofit board members are black, per a recent study by BoardSource. The percentage of people of color in the executive director and CEO role has remained under 20% for the past 15 years, per a study called Race to Lead. Visit our website, nonprofitaustin.org/civil society, to read these reports and learn about other strategies on how to strengthen nonprofit board diversity and inclusion, and also to share your comments on today's podcast. This is Barry Silverberg with Civil Society, a Center for Nonprofit Studies podcast in collaboration with ACCTV. Thank you for joining us.